At long last, we're back with another episode of My Hero Academia. It's the first episode of the final season, and my god, I am hyped up for this. The previous season really got cooking with a lot of hefty plot developments, great fights, and epic moments before leaving us on a cliffhanger ending for the big remaining battles to be had. All Might vs All for One, and of course the main event, Deku vs Shigaraki. It's been a long time coming, and so without further ado, let's jump into things, shall we? Episode 1 of Season 8, Toshinori Yagi Rising/Origin. Also, before we go any further, I will say that I did read the manga back when it was first released, but since then I've very much forgotten most of the plot. That being said, I can't promise that things won't randomly pop back up into my head, so if you're an anime-only person, just be warned. So we jump right back into things, straight into the action, and I'll be honest, I was in two minds about this starting. On the one hand, yeah, it's a good idea to refresh the audience about what's happened in the previous season and all the big battles that had been left off as a cliffhanger. However, I'm pretty sure the entire first half of the episode it's just a full-on recap of All Might vs All for One without showing anything new. And this was a little bit frustrating. I get it though, you gotta fill time and be casual friendly. Not everybody's gonna be doing a full show rewatch before the season restarts, so it probably was a necessary thing. For me though, I just wanted to get into the new stuff. Oh well. We'll recap it anyway. The episode begins with a bit of narration by Deku on how they'd sprung the trap on the villains and tried to separate them to work to their advantage. As he's narrating this, there's a shot of an old wrinkled hand grabbing cherry blossom leaves that are flying through the air. Is this a new shot? Have we seen this before? I'm not so sure, to tell you the truth. If so, is this going to be relevant going forward, or is it just some random red herring? What's going on here? And then there's another hand that's shown that I'm pretty sure is Deku, so to tell you the truth, I'm a little bit confused as to the context of the scene. Then we jump into the control room, which tries to get across to the audience that everything's happening all at once. We often have to watch a bunch of fights one after the other in sequence because they don't like intercutting between the big battles too much overall, and I think that's the right call because it lets you get into the flow of the story without things getting too bogged down. So we've already seen that Darby will be defeated by the combined ice powers of his family, and that Toga will eventually be defeated by Uraraka. But for now, we see things from the POV of the guys in Mission Control where it seems that everything that could go wrong is going wrong, all at the same time. At the Mountain Villa battle, we can see that the twice doubles that Toga made are still running wild. And at the same time, they're taking down the coffin in the sky. Darby's thermal energies continuing to grow to the point that he was going to cause a catastrophic explosion, and it seemed that nobody would be able to stop him. Deku and Shigaraki were facing down with one another, with pretty much the entire core of top-level fighters that had been there before Deku being blitzed. Then on top of all of that, All for One's almost at the distance where he can use his Mud Warp quirk to instantly arrive at Shigaraki, merge properly, and take control, and then just instantly win. Game, set, match. It really was a great way to get across how dire the situation was, and what deep shit they were in before they started to pull together a couple of victories. Here is where we rewatch the opening stage of the fight between All Might and All for One. He stands there, no quirk, just waiting for him. He knows that just as Shigaraki's being influenced by All for One, so too is All for One being influenced by Shigaraki. With his original personality, All for One would just keep on flying. He'd probably have a quiet chuckle at what All Might was trying to do, but knows that he has to keep going to achieve his goal. He can always come back to finish All Might later. Hell, he might not even bother with that. Maybe he'd keep him as some little pet to watch the destruction. He knows that All Might can't do anything to him with One for All passed on. But that's not the All for One we get here though. Here, he has Shigaraki's hatred, and so he wants to go and face All Might. He wants to make him suffer. He's more sadistic. He relishes the idea of killing him, even though he knows that it's some scheme that All Might's cooked up to try to delay him. He's simply confident that in the end, it won't matter, and he should be able to take him down relatively easily. We get to relive one of the most hype moments in the entire franchise as All Might reveals he has an Iron Man suit in order to face down with All for One, and the symbol of peace once again powers up for one last showdown. I will say that even though we've seen it before, the opening act of their clash just goes so hard. Incredible stuff. All Might showing early on that he's just the better fighter and tactician, that he's studied All for One and knows his moves. He knows what he's going to do before he does it, like with the first Deku vs Bakugo fight back in Season 1, where even though Deku couldn't use his quirk, he could predict Bakugo's moves because he'd watched him so much. It was also really sweet that he got this suit custom fitted with all the quirks of his class, and he knows each of the students so well, knowing how to mix and match their powers to get the best possible chance of victory. I also love that he goes into the battle with the full expectation that he is going to win. He's not sacrificing himself. He thinks he can win. He's openly laughing and smiling and taunting. I think this helps get you as the audience hyped up because it's not some miserable experience of sad music and All Might getting chipped away at. It's explosive and bombastic, and it lets you buy into the idea that, holy shit, he might actually do this. It makes those moments where he takes the big hits far more suspenseful. If it was framed as All Might's death scene ahead of time, those moves are simply confirmation for the audience. Whereas when he's actually in the fight, they become holy shit moments. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. They have a huge battle that levels half the city, and though All Might takes insane levels of punishment, with his suit taking extreme damage and his own bones breaking beneath the armor, he keeps on going. He blasts All For One with hits that would kill anybody else, and so All For One has to use his quirks more and more to keep healing, which in turn starts to reverse him more quickly, culminating with All Might getting smashed really badly and being left in a bloody heap. However, he doesn't give up, because he notices that his plan's working, and so despite him and his suit being very badly damaged, he gets up. He laughs and he keeps going. That's where we left off. Yeah, so this lasted about 10 minutes, almost half of the episode's runtime, and like I said, it was a bit annoying at first when you realize what they're doing, but at the same time, I don't think you can really help but get invested the further along it goes. It really is such an incredible opening act for their fight, and it got me hyped up to see even more of it. Then we come into the fresh stuff. When we return, instead of just facing down with All For One and charging at him again and again, All Might's doing something a little bit different. He's running away to buy time to prepare an ambush. Once again, I like that we get to see what a tactical and intelligent character All Might's supposed to be. I think that when he was really strong and overpowered, it made it seem like he was just this big brute that only had to hit people as hard as he could to win. Kind of like the same thing we saw from Deku. He started off using more tricks and different tactical maneuvers because he couldn't use his quirk properly due to his lack of control, but the more he could acclimatize to it, the more he became all about that head-on bull rush smash. Yeah, as he got more quirks, he started to change it up again, but those middle seasons was very much about him becoming All Might 2.0. Back to All Might though, as he got weaker, we saw that he had to change things up, and we saw just how clever he really could be. He wasn't just some giant himbo, but very much a tactical player like many of the big names. We saw this in his final fight in Kamino, where he has to fool All For One into letting his guard down for the big United States of Smash, and we see it here again. He knows that even with his Hercules suit, he's not as strong as he was with One For All, and so he's not on All For One's level for a head-on assault. If he keeps charging him one-on-one, he's going to simply lose because each hit damages his shields more, whilst All For One simply has a long way to go before he reverses out of existence. The odds aren't in his favour. On top of that, if he keeps doing the same thing, he runs the risk of All For One getting bored and doing some big area attack to perhaps end the fight, and thus, he'll make it to the warp zone and it's game over for Deku. All For One corners him in an alleyway and attacks him with those red spikes and the giant chompy faces that are perhaps the freakiest quirks I've ever seen in the show. They're so unsettling and monstrous. Proper scary, and the perfect representation of a Demon King. This whole section where he taunts him and chases him was so well done, and then when All For One bursts out of the wall and punches him right in the stomach and All Might's coughing blood, for a brief second they got me here. I thought, oh shit, he's dead. But then it's revealed that as he was getting punched, All Might used metal tentacles to wrap him up and shoved one into his mouth before blasting him with ice. Whilst it was sudden, I liked that it didn't feel cheap or out of nowhere, because he openly says, even before All For One attacks him, that he's preparing his tentacle and Shoto powers. So they did set this up ahead of time. Another thing I'm enjoying from this version of All Might is seeing how ruthless and brutal he can be. Compare him to Deku and how they approach things, and I think it's night and day. I cannot imagine Deku doing this, freezing somebody's brain to try to kill them, nor could I imagine him using his pure strength to rip off somebody's face like All Might did in that fight that left All Might gutted prior to the show's beginning. All Might then starts talking about how if his light has to go out, somebody else is going to receive it and they're going to shine, which is used as a transition point towards Aoyama and his fight, which seems to be almost over. Not gonna lie, but I found this to be very disappointing at first. When they first showed off the villain at the start of the arc, I thought he looked super creepy, and I was eager to see what was going to happen. He was clearly mega powerful, but instead of getting to see this really unsettling, creepy character, we get the narration of him having defeated 31 of 32 heroes that were sent there to face off with some of the remaining villains. I don't know, it feels like there was the concept here, but the execution of it was lacking to the point that it feels like a missed opportunity. That being said, I enjoy that they said that there was one hero left that wasn't incapacitated, which, since the scene focuses on Aoyama, implies that it's him. But on a rewatch, you know that it's actually hinting towards Hagakure being out there, and that she hasn't been caught yet, which is just a fun little tidbit. Seriously, this dude's so freaky with such an ominous quirk. He deserved a full episode fight if you ask me. A great quirk, great design, great voice performance, and it just goes to waste. Instead, he gives off his monologue to Aoyama and we see his plants absorb all of Fat Comes Fat in a very creepy sequence, and it just leaves me thinking that a full episode of this sort of thing would have been incredible TV. Even if you have to add stuff that wasn't in the manga, it would have been good. And apparently this season's only 11 episodes, so I think it would have been nice to add some more. Oh well, it's done now I suppose. The dude talks shit to Aoyama, tells him that he has his broken belt and that there's no way for him to win now. It's all over. Aoyama, for the first time perhaps ever in the show's history, gets massively angry and fired up, goes plus ultra and shoots out his lasers, but like the plant guy said, they're unfocused and erratic. Here's where the big reveal comes in that Hagakure was behind the villain, and somehow she jumps up super high into the air. How? I don't know. Anime, I guess, and she absorbs the laser beams and blasts him with her own naval laser. I was not expecting her and Aoyama to become so badass this late into the game, but I'm here for this. Great stuff from her voice actor too. Great performance. This then cuts back to All Might, who reveals the next part of his plan, which I found to be both awesome and hilarious. He's essentially able to use the Hercules AI to fire a massive laser from the sky down onto All For One, and even mocks him by using the power of Aoyama, who All For One had completely underestimated all along. Once again, just top tier animation. And for an episode that really only goes for 13 minutes when you strip away the recap, to have this many epic moments is something special. All Might focused episodes really just do hit differently, don't they? I would watch a complete All Might prequel series. And you would too, don't lie about it. Anyway, this looks painful. You can see All For One's skeleton at times. Ouch! I mean, the laser's so hot that it's melting metal and the stone around him, so yeah, it would hurt. To be honest though, I'm rather shocked that in all his adventures in quirk stealing, All For One never found a quirk that would allow him to feel no pain at all. Then again, that probably wouldn't make for good TV, would it? Part of the fun of fighting anime is hearing the screams of combat, and if one fighter can't feel shit, well, it's not very interesting, is it? Anyway, the explanation of how All Might somehow managing to win here is incredible. Him knowing that All For One would never hit him in the head because he wants to look him in the eyes when he kills him. Sacrificing being able to use his legs to absorb the impact of the attack, tangling him with tentacles and then using thrusters to fly away just as the laser impacts, with a little bit of Invisible Girl resin on his armor to shield him just in case. Then when he notices that All For One's struggling to his feet to try to get out of the beam, he blasts him with a sonic attack and uses part of his armor to create little sticky handcuffs to tie him down for a bit longer. God, this fight's good. It's just really exciting and dynamic. A true David versus Goliath type of matchup, and I will be honestly shocked if Deku versus Shigaraki is going to surpass it, to tell you the truth. I think that's going to be far more of a Clash of the Titans vibe, which is fine, but this is just something special to me. Granted, I am an unabashed All Might fanboy. One of the best parts of the episode for me was seeing that even now, at the end of the line, All Might is still the hero. He is the forever gold standard. Some random kid in a far-off country is watching this fight, and even though his grand tells him that the outcome doesn't matter to them, he's still there, watching intently. He's getting invested and inspired by All Might's smile in the face of death. Add yet another child to the pile of being inspired by the big man himself. Speaking of which, eventually Hercules gives out from the strain of everything, and All For One gets up and slaps All Might away, but it's clear that it's not going well for him at all. He's far younger than he was when the fight began. Hell, he seems far younger than he was when he first got hit with the laser. All Might not be winning the battle, but he is winning the war, except he's pretty much cooked now. There's nowhere to run, and it seems like he's all out of tricks. But this scene was already tailor-made for somebody to come in and save him. I honestly was expecting it to be Bakugo, to tell you the truth, so to see the blood paralysis and for Stain to appear, that took me by surprise, but in a good way. Now we can see that once again, he believes that Toshinori's All Might, and he's been clearly watching the battle, so he comes to help him out. I've forgotten what happens to him here, but I'm expecting him not to last long. He has one trick, and when All For One figures out a counter for it, it's going to be all over. Honestly, I can't say I'll mourn him very much. He kind of deserves to die. We head to the credits after this before we finish off with a scene that I think is just there to put to rest Aoyama's part in the story. Hagakure takes down the villain, then Aoyama speaks to her in shock because obviously he can see her. She freaks out because, well, she's naked, and she runs to hide. I wonder how long this visibility thing's going to last for her. Must be trippy to be able to see yourself properly for the first time ever, right? Then again, don't some quirks come in when you're like 4 years old? So do we reckon she was born invisible, or that one day she just became invisible, never to return? That would kind of suck, not gonna lie. They then decide to team up to destroy the rest of the flowers, and that's where the episode ends and we get the preview. In the preview, we see that All Might and All For One are obviously going to continue their fight. We get to see what Stain was doing before he joins the battle, and then we also get our first look at Deku versus Shigaraki for this season. So that's all pretty exciting, but then there's also the promise of even more help for All Might. So, okay, that's got to be Bakugo, right? I do know that much. And does that mean Stain's probably dying next episode too? Because I feel like Stain would not play nicely with Bakugo around. My god, this episode was good. I'm still salty about the massively long recap that could have been compressed into 5 minutes, to tell you the truth, but it is what it is. Hopefully that's the last we see of that and we don't get 10 minutes of Deku versus Shigaraki or Shigaraki versus the others in the coffin before we get new content for that side of the story either. I'm still hyped up for the next episode though, and so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the first episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.